Thinking about language use in this story, we know that Cisneros uses foreshadowing. In the very first paragraph, the narrator says that on the day of her wedding, Cleophas' father divined the morning his daughter would raise her hand over her eyes, look south, and dream of returning to the chores that never ended, 6 good-for-nothing brothers, and 1 old man's complaints. And then in the second paragraph of the story, Cleophas remembers her father saying, "I am your father. I will never abandon you." So on the day of her wedding, she wasn't thinking so much about that. She was thinking about her new life that she was going to have with her husband in Sikkim. But when things go badly for her with her marriage, then she starts remembering what her father said and trying to think about, could she trust that? Did he really say that, or did he really mean it? Also, you might remember that this happened in the red convertible, where we had the foreshadowing in the first paragraph about what was going to happen at the end. Cisneros also uses an interesting style in her writing, and in this story the language is informal, conversational English, which I think is her usual style. You might notice all the sentence fragments and run-on sentences mixed in with some Spanish words and phrases. The language gives the reader a feeling of cultural authenticity. So I think she does a good balancing act. There's not so much Spanish that the reader who doesn't know Spanish feels confused, but enough to feel that the author is familiar with the culture that she is writing about. And even though the language is informal, Cisneros uses similes to emphasize certain points, such as when she says about the men, "Each is nightly trying to find the truth lying at the bottom of the bottle, like a gold doubloon on the sea floor." So Cisneros often uses similes in her writing. Again, much like T.C. Boyle does in Greasy Lake, her writing tends to be full of them as she's trying to use them for a particular reason. So in this case, it seems to be that she is feeling some sympathy or some empathy for these men, even though she disapproves of the way they treat their wives, the way they abuse women, which she talks about, how many women are found dead, and it's by their significant others. But she knows that these men are working class men. They're living in another country where the culture is not their culture, the language is not their language. They don't know how to make a better life for themselves. So, she does understand that they have all these deep frustrations, and they don't understand how to express them and how to act in their lives to make them better. Then at the end of the story, when Felice says, "That's why I like the name of that arroyo. Makes you want to holler like Tarzan," right? So we understand when she says that when you want to holler like Tarzan, that it would be a strong figure, right? A strong, brave, heroic. And women can be that too, right? It doesn't just have to be a man. So it's a strong comparison. And this simile also contains an allusion. So we have the allusion to Tarzan, a literary figure. It's one that people know. It's from popular culture, and so that makes the writing stronger, since people can relate to it and understand what she's talking about. And then there are clearly many allusions to the telenovelas, such as "Tu, O Nadie," "The Rich Also Cry," "Maria de Nadie." Also, there's allusion to La Llorona, the legendary weeping or wailing woman, a ghost story that goes back to the time of the conquest in Mexico. So there she is out there searching for her children, crying for her children. And if children are out there in the night going somewhere where they don't belong, right, there's the fear that La Llorona will grab them. And you can go to the following site to read one version of the story. However, there are many different versions depending on which part of Mexico one might come from, how that area developed the story and passed it along. Other allusions. There is one to Corinne Tellado, the author of the love story that Cleophas treasures. We know again that was such a betrayal to her to be struck, not just struck by her husband, that she's become, I guess, used to that almost, but the fact that he would throw that book at her, and that just kind of represents or symbolizes all her ideas about what love or marriage should be, and she is very disappointed, of course, in her dreams that she had at the beginning. But Corinne Tellado, if you don't know her, she lived from 1927 to 2009. She was a best-selling Spanish writer of romance novels and photo novels. So instead of thinking graphic novels, you're not drawings, but actual photos used in her books to tell the story. There is the cover of one of her novels. She did publish more than 4,000 novels and sold more than 400 million books. That is quite an accomplishment. Her novels are not very long, at least the ones that I have seen, but still, that is a tremendous output. She made the Guinness Book of World Records in 1994 for the most books sold in Spanish, so again, very successful in her career. And her style was different from other European romance novelists. Hers are set in the present and include no eroticism. So again, it's common for romance novels to be set in a part of the historical past that people feel is romantic in some way. The time of the Elizabethan times, when Queen Elizabeth was the Queen of England, or during the American Revolution. There's something interesting or exciting about that. But hers, set in the present, and then they don't have the sexiness, they don't have the appeal to try to titillate the readers and make them feel like, ooh, we're gonna get into some romantic stuff here that's not just about love and falling in love and getting married and having a family. Right? It's not love outside of what would be proper. Then we have the themes, the importance of being able to distinguish between fantasy and reality. Cisneros makes us realize that it's dangerous to believe in romantic fictions and base your life choices on those beliefs. So it was a mistake for Cleophilus to watch those telenovelas and feel that that was what her life was going to be like once she had gotten married and moved to Seguin. There is a rich tradition of this in literature, from Flaubert's novel, Madame Bovary, the main character, Madame Bovary, Conrad's Lord Jim, again, he's the main character in the novel, and that is also the title of the book. Right? These characters do much the same as Cleophilus, and it is a big mistake for them. Then there's the importance of finding your own voice, especially for women. Traditionally, Mexican patriarchal culture silences women. Juan Pedro wants to completely silence his wife. She has no say in anything about their life together. So, this is true of Mexican culture, but it's true of many other cultures as well. And it has not been looked upon in a positive way for women to say what they think, to voice their opinions about what they want in life or what's going on in the world. It's like they should always try to find out what the men are thinking and follow along with their ideas, unless they want to be strongly, criticized, be seen as too assertive, aggressive, be seen in a negative way. But Cisneros wants us to think differently about women's voices. And then women should be independent. Weak, dependent women are extremely vulnerable. Just like Cleophilus, when she gets to another country, she doesn't speak the language. She doesn't have a good education, and she doesn't have any kind of a job or job prospects. There's no public transportation, so she has no way of getting around. When women are in that kind of a situation, and then they are mistreated, that can end very badly for them. So, of course, it doesn't end badly for Cleophilus. It's kind of a miraculous kind of ending that she is able to escape. But many, many women do not. And for that reason, they need to learn to depend upon themselves and not on the men in their lives. The archetypes in the story, again, we're thinking about 3 important female archetypes in a Mexican culture. So I've already mentioned La Llorona, who is one of them. But then there's La Malinche, who was the translator and lover of Cortez, who is thought to have betrayed her people by helping him defeat the Aztecs. So it's very negative in Mexican culture to be called Malinche. And you know that that is someone who is a backstabber, someone who will betray you. And then La Virgen de Guadalupe, so we have our religious figure. She appeared to Juan Diego, an Aztec who had converted to Christianity near Mexico City in 1531. She's considered to be the model for female perfection, a loving mother, submissive and obedient to patriarchal rules and laws. And so when women don't act this way, right, then they are considered to be bad women. And so it's kind of almost an impossible, standard to have to live up to, even though very important figure for Mexican Catholics because of the indigenous people, the Aztecs, having their religion, their belief in their gods replaced by the Spanish belief in the Christian gods. Right? It was important to have this figure to make Christianity inclusive for the native peoples as well as for the Spaniards. Then there's La Llorona, which we've already mentioned, the bad mother who either deserted or murdered her own children and who must suffer eternally for her sin as she wanders through the night crying for her children. So again, considered to be very bad, right, if you don't take care of your children and sacrifice everything for them. Latina writers then and artists have worked diligently since the late 1960s to reimagine these archetypes as women with agency and power. So, like many Chicana feminists, Cisneros takes the archetype of the wailing woman and gives it a twist. So Soledad, one of Cleophilus's neighbors in Seguin, her name means alone or loneliness in Spanish, and she's lonely because her husband either died or abandoned her. Then the neighbor on the other side, Dolores, her name means pain or sorrow in Spanish. She spends all of her time grieving her dead sons and husband. We know her sons died in the war, and then her husband died after that. And it seems as though Cleophilus will have a similar unhappy life, crying miserably because of how she has been treated so badly. But she doesn't. She escapes with the help of a strong woman who isn't looking for a man to take care of her. And then we have another name that's significant, Feliz, or Feliz means happy in Spanish. And of course that's a positive thing for Cleophilus. And the Creek name, Hollering woman, is much stronger than crying woman. Right? So again, Tarzan hollers, but he would not be crying. The other types in this story, circular journey. We know that Cleophilus leaves Monclova and then returns to Monclova at the end of the story after learning a valuable lesson. So this is her hero's journey. Right? She has to go through some hard experiences to learn a lesson about her life that she brings back with her to Mexico at the end. And then there's rebirth. So she has a rebirth of sorts after hearing Feliz yell like Tarzan while crossing the creek on the way back. This is when Cleophilus laughs out loud, and she probably hasn't laughed out loud in a very long time. Right? So once she gets to escape from Juan Pedro, she is able to be reborn again, to have a different idea of life and what her life can eventually be.